Hey guys, I'm Janet Education, and today we are playing Realms of Ruin, the new Warhammer Age of Sigmar game. I said we're playing it, I'm not actually playing it right now. I played it a week ago. Yes, I played remotely, and I've been sent the footage of that session. So I played multiplayer, which is really fun. I actually played the first episode of Campaign as well, which I'm not allowed to show you, but I really enjoyed that. And then we got paired up with other people at the event. I got paired up with Pete the Wargamer, which was an absolute pleasure. Watched a lot of his content. And yeah, so here we are. I'm playing as the Kruleboys. We're against the Stormcast Eternals. They're the only two factions that have currently been announced, but there are going to be 4 on the release of the game. Where the release of the game is, we don't know yet. We don't know when it's going to be released, but there is an open beta this weekend between the 7th and the 11th, 7th and 10th rather, of July. So yeah, this weekend, just go on Steam and hit play beta. I'm pretty sure that's all you have to do to play it on those dates, which is very, very cool. I recommend giving it a go because not only can you play multiplayer, I don't know if it's just this map or if there's more. Apparently there's been a lot of polish since this build, so I don't know quite how, what's going to be in that beta yet, but there will be multiplayer, which is great. I had a great time playing this with the multiplayer. It's really tense. We'll talk all about that, as things develop in this footage. But also, there's going to be a single-player mode, not campaign, but like you can play, the skirmish, sort of this style skirmish game against the AI, if that suits you better. If you just want to sort of play a bit of the game and get used to it ahead of, enjoying the campaign on launch. That's what I'm really excited for, because I don't tend to play a lot of multiplayer, but I did very much enjoy this, so I might be tempted. I might be tempted to start playing some multiplayer games again, because this was really fun. So here I'm playing as the Kruleboys. If you haven't seen the other video, I've already should have already published a video where I'm playing as the Stormcast Eternals against the Kruleboys. But they play fairly differently. I find the Kruleboys, although the unit cap is the same, I feel like they're a bit more fragile. And, their tactics are more sneaky, that's kind of their thing, and it does feel that way when you're playing. And so here I just tried to get as many units out as possible and run my opponent in as many different directions as possible. So it seems like Pete the Wargamer is... I think his strategy generally at the start tends to be recruit some units and then send them out to start capturing things. I just start capturing things right away, which I think might be the better move, because you're not really going to get into a fight straight away, so you may as well start getting some resources in. Speaking of resources, you can see in the top left we have our resources. We have command, which is used to bring in new units, primarily. You can see me doing it now. You press D, the D key, by the way, when you have nothing selected, and it brings up the recruitment window. You can recruit people at any time, provided you could, afford it. And it'll just add it to a queue, and they'll come out the realm gate to your command post. So there we go. There I have some more units. My man skewer bolt boys, apparently. Otherwise, D will upgrade. It'll bring up the upgrade interface. If you're hovering over a victory point, not a victory point, no, specifically all of them but the victory points. There's a couple of different sorts of points. There's the victory points, which you can see there are 3 of on the minimap, sort of marked as dice almost, with 1, 2, and 3. And then you've got your capture point. Sorry, they're not even called capture points. So they are all capture points because they're all points to be captured. Arcane conduits. There we go. I'm getting used to the Phantobabble, which is like Technobabble but for fantasy. I've decided. I don't know if anyone has ever said that apart from me, but it'll catch on eventually. So anyway, the Phantobabble is very confusing at first, but it's fairly intuitive. So anyway, you can upgrade the arcane conduits with bastions. You can't build anything on top of the victory points, though. They are always free to grab, so you need to be a bit more on the ball protecting those. But the arcane conduits you can upgrade with 4 different kinds of bastions. The only ones I was bothering to do during this demo was upgrading them to the ones that create realm stone, which is a second resource in the top left corner. So that realm stone is used to upgrade your command post, which is your main base, which basically gives you access to more units. So you upgrade that a bunch, you can get dragons and stuff, which is great. It also puts up your population cap. You can see the final resource in the top left. Our population cap is 6 out of 6. So yeah, we're full up right now. So now it's just making best use of our units as we can. I even tried to recruit some more. I went, oh, I can't. Now I can, though. So here you can see I retreated. Once you get into combat, you're stuck in combat, okay? You are stuck in there. You can't just wander off. You can't just sort of like, you know, run away. You can't micro your guys out of combat. Your only options are to stay and fight to the death, or you can retreat. But retreating basically runs them all the way back to your command post. And then you have to heal them. So, you know, pretty grim. But there is another way to heal. So those upgrades, those bastions that I was talking about, there's the one that gives you Realm Stone, which is the only one I'm building, but there's also a defensive turret that obviously defends the point, you know. That's pretty self-explanatory. But there's also one that heals, which is very, very handy. So, of course, you don't need to spend anything to heal. Because if you look here, down the bottom left, right now, it says heal nearby squads. That command post can heal your units, but it costs 150, so it's quite expensive to do. If you're only healing like a couple of units, it might almost be worth leaving them to fight to the death and then recruiting a new one. It's a bit iffy. But one thing you'll also notice at the bottom left, I have these units selected, and they have 3 abilities, and they have a cost to them. So it costs command and Realm Stone to use certain abilities. That can tip things into, you know, into your favour, which can be the difference between winning or losing a capture point. So it might pay for itself, or it might force your opponent to have to spend more. Because, you know, you've killed something expensive, you managed to grab it before it runs away, which is really, really nice, because generally time to kill is pretty slow. It takes a long time to kill people, it takes a long time for your guys to die, unless you spend a load of resources to get those extra abilities on, which I think is a really nice way to balance it, because it gives you time to decide whether you're going to use those abilities or not, but also the nature of getting stuck into combat, the fact that you just get locked into melee with enemies. It means that you can basically delay your opponents by running your units into them. You know, even if you know you're going to lose, they have to sit there and fight until they've killed your units. And so it forces them to have to, like, slow down, you know? If they're running for got some really powerful units running towards objective, throw a bunch of cheap units at them, and it might delay them that, like, 10 or 20 seconds that you need to be able to keep that point long enough to win. You know, you might be able to knock that victory point down, or you might be able to destroy the defensive turret that's protecting that node, or whatever. You know, so just those little ways you can delay, I think, is really fun. Because it is actually very costly having to retreat all the way back to your base. It's a huge time investment running all the way back there, so it's not something you can really do. You have to sort of stand and fight a lot of the time. If you want to sort of push any kind of advantage, which I think is great. I think that's something that more strategy games need to do, where you can't just sort of kite people around sort of indefinitely. You kind of can with ranged units if you micro a hell of a lot, but take a lot of your time up. You're probably better off having something else run in and sort of stick to the enemy while you shoot them with other units. Much more powerful. As we'll see here, you know, I have those ranged units there. And, yeah, the other units, I mean, there were other ranged units, but they can't do anything about my ranged units. They're just shooting into combat, having a whale of a time. Same thing's happening to my enemy there. So you can see I am constantly, you'll see throughout this match, I am constantly attacking that little arcane conduit on the far right of the minimap. I keep doing that because it keeps forcing Pete to run units over there to deal with it. And while he's dealing with that point that I'm probably never going to capture, you know, but I will if he leaves, you know, my one unit to attack it indefinitely, I will eventually take it. So he has to do something to stop it, right? But that pulls him away from other more important objectives. And that's kind of what I've been doing this whole time. Just keep feinting with one unit, and then the bulk of my forces go for the thing that I actually want. So I keep forcing his units to run for something that sort of I don't actually care about. So it's really quite good. You can play these mind games. Oh, and yes, I'm not done telling you about bastions. So there's also the final tower that you can build on an arcane conduit. The final bastion is the reconnaissance bastion, which basically puts up, you know, a line of sight granter. You know, it gives you a big line of sight over an area. I don't know how big, because like I said, I only built that one sort of tower because that was the one that gave me the Realm Stone, and the Realm Stone is used to upgrade the bastion, which gives me more units and, you know, unit population and all the rest of it. So I grabbed that one. So here I'm probably going to have to retreat pretty quickly. So one thing that's really nice is the control system in this game is really good. So you can do all the usual thing of, like, you know, holding shift to click waypoints and things like that. You can click on the mini-map to issue orders or to zoom to that part of the map. But in these sort of combats where you have a load of people selected, you switch to the one that's highlighted by tabbing through your units, and that gives you access to the hotkeys for their individual abilities, such as, you know, retreating and etc. and all their, you know, funny little unique abilities they each have. So it's really nice just sort of tabbing through your different abilities. They all have different costs and cooldowns, but it's a nice way to sort of go through where you don't have to necessarily try and find the unit you want. When there's a big like mound of enemies and a mound of your own guys, it's really difficult to single them out sometimes by sight, but just tabbing through them, it'll highlight the icon and you can go, ah yeah, there's the icon, I'm good. I think it's a lot better than trying to, you know, click on it when there's sort of a huge melee happening and units are getting thrown around. It's much better, I think, just being able to tab through. Also, it means that it's more friendly on controller. This game is coming out on PlayStation and Xbox as well. And honestly, I think the control scheme is really good for it. It seems really, really rather nice. They seem to have done a lot to make it sort of more accessible. But by doing so, I think they've made the game more accessible on PC as well. I think that's something that's often overlooked. Accessibility is pretty global. Anything that lets you access your units in sort of different, intuitive ways, it helps everybody who's playing the game, not just, you know, people playing a strategy game on a console, which not a lot of people do, let's be honest. Consoles tend to do quite badly in sort of in a sort of RTS complement, but it's great to see that this one's coming out on console. I think it's a really good fit for it. So try to run away, getting shot as I run. So once again, I am down on capture points, but I see his entire army is on one of the victory points. So I'm going to try and send a unit to get the capture point alongside that, so hopefully he sends his horde to go and make sure that point doesn't get taken while I try and grab the victory points. So I'm always trying to grab points out from under him to force him to run there while I take the capture points that I care more about. So that's what I'm going to keep doing. And yeah, once again going for that far corner. So I'm just going to keep moving. And now that he's got that victory point for a little while, I am going to send more units onto that other victory point as well. But yeah, constant mind games. Trying to work out what he might be doing, and then trying to work out how best to, you know, take advantage of that, basically. Which is very fun. It's a very fun dynamic. But yeah, it does have a feeling slightly of like a MOBA or something, but only in so much as a MOBA is basically just a stripped down RTS anyway, so, you know, real-time strategy games sort of came up with all of the tropes, and this game just does it very well. It's sort of, you know, the things that make RTS is really good. It kept all of that in and got rid of a lot of the faff, I think. I think they've really streamlined it in a way that I very much like. It's not just, you know, huge lists of different upgrades and things. You know, it's very direct. It's all rock, paper, scissors. Oh, speaking of rock, paper, scissors, this game also has sort of a rock, paper, scissors system. So you can see the icons above units. You got swords, shields, and bows. And basically the shields are good against the bows, the swords are good against the shields, and the bows are good against the swords. Right? Obviously, a unit of archers on their own getting charged by swordsmen, yeah, they're going to get cut down. You know, it's sort of a general thing. There's still, you know, circumstances still sort of demand you have quite balanced armies, you know, which is cool. I really like it. But there are also, you'll notice there are stars as well. You can see that unit there. He's my killer boss who got killed. Not so great. Anyway, I've also got my Troggoth, I don't know, Scum Humper or something. I have no idea what these things are called. I'm not up to date. I don't really pay attention to Age of Sigmar all that much. I'm more of a Warhammer Fantasy guy. I'm old school. So I can never remember what they're called. It's a Marsh Crawler, that's what it's called, not a Scum Humper. I was close. Close enough. Anyway. So yeah, there is a rock, paper, scissors, but you'll notice some have other icons, just stars or something. They're like special units, they're not the basic stuff, so they sort of sit outside of that usual rock, paper, scissors. They have their own thing going on. That you just sort of learn as you play, which, you know, fair enough. It's good it's not all just rock, paper, scissors. There is more to it than that, and there are some surprises. And certainly, if you've got a unit that sort of, you know, someone's, you know, rock to their paper, you can still trigger a bunch of your really killy, like, extra special abilities, and you might still win that fight. Or you might just be a much higher tier unit, in which case you might not have the best, sort of most efficient trade of blows, but you might still win, because, you know, you're just a more elite unit. So it is something you have to learn as you play. You know, these things are a shorthand, not sort of a you know, a strict rule. But anyway, I am stocking up on units once again, and I'm trying to avoid combat basically as much as I can, and I'm trying to take the best routes through the map with all of my units to waste as much of Pete's time as I can. And you can see it's actually working really well here, but it's around now I am getting so terrified of his army. I really am. His army is starting to get quite scary, and it's only a matter of time before, you know, I'm going to bump into it. But yeah, it does start to get a little bit intimidating. And at this point I am getting very stressed out, even though I have a massive lead right now. I do feel like it could be, you know, I could lose it very fast, just because I can't really compete with what he's got field. I mean, look at this. Look at the minimap. Do you see the minimap just explode with dots there? He has so many units. I mean, apparently I do. I've got my population cap, but I'm spread out all over the place. Which I guess has been to my benefit, broadly, but anyway. Anyway, it doesn't look like I should be. Like, looking back at this now, it doesn't feel tense, but, yeah, I was feeling real tense at this point. I was definitely feeling very tense. Or was this maybe this was after I was feeling really tense. You know, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Okay, yeah, see, he takes this one back, then he's got 2, and then that leaves me. Yeah. So it gets a bit scary. It is around now I start to get a little bit scared. But I did have a big advantage, so maybe I shouldn't have had, you know, maybe I shouldn't have bothered. But, yeah, just constantly, just the map control in this game is really fun. It's a really fun puzzle. Just constantly trying to stay a couple steps ahead, basically, because you're not really just trying to go head-to-head with them, you're trying to get objectives. So what I think Pete should have done, which is something that I did in the first game we played, is because he had such overwhelming strength, he should have just come and destroyed my base. He would have won. I think you can just destroy the enemy's base and you win, I think. I think that's how that works, but I'm not entirely sure. But I think that's how you win. Or one way you can win. You can just destroy them. So that's what he should have done. Because it would have forced me to sit and fight him with probably not enough units. I would have been churning out units as quickly as I can. And if he just had 1 or 2 units left out the back somewhere, you know, if he was able to win like a really good victory against me in an initial engagement, take out like half my army, the other half isn't going to be able to deal with like 3/4 of his army, say. So the rest of his units can just run off in different directions to grab outposts. Because that's what I did to him in that first game, you know. Which, spoilers, sorry. I know I've repeated myself a lot if you've watched that first game. I don't know which video people are going to watch first. Some people might be a Kruleboys fan, some people might be a Stormcast Turtle fan. I want to see, you know, gameplay of one rather than the other. So I'm assuming that it's people are watching either of these as their first video. But anyway. Yeah, that's what I think Stormcast Turtle are better at. They're stockier, so they can really just like pressure one spot really, really well. Whereas the Kruleboys feel like they're better at pressuring multiple areas better. But of course, if you're pressuring a very important spot, then your opponent has no choice but to try and protect it, right? And your command post is sort of the biggest example of that. You really need to protect that, or else you're dead. But yeah, here I was getting very, very tense. Look, there's a dragon that just came out that luckily I was able to intercept, and the control point down the bottom left, I threw all of my cheap units that were supposed to come and help my better units up here fight. I just threw them all into combat because, of course, you have to either fight to the death, right? Like I'm doing. I'm trying to delay as much as possible. You have to fight to the death, or you retreat. So I forced him to keep fighting me, and thanks to that delay, I've now put him in a position where he probably could have grabbed that other capture point, but he still would have only had 1 left, right? So, yeah, I basically put him in a position where I delayed him enough that I could maintain those 3. I stopped him capturing 1 while I was capturing the other, and then he couldn't grab 2 quick enough. But you can see his army. Like, nothing I have could even slightly compete against what he has fielded right now. So, that's why I think if he had attacked me, he would have won. It's that simple. If he had attacked my command post with everything, I don't think it would have mattered that I had all the victory points. So I think that's the fun of the game. It's that constant, the constant push and pull. You know, constantly trying to figure out what your opponent is doing well and forcing them to do something that they can't do well in, you know? So that's kind of how I see it, which I think is great. I think it's really interesting. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Remember, the beta is out on the 7th to the 10th. It's an open beta, anyone can take part, and it's got a single-player skirmish mode of, you know, this sort of multiplayer style game. You can play that against the AI. I don't know anything about map selection or anything, but presumably it's this map at least. But it is just those two factions as well. There are 2 more factions coming, but we don't know what they are yet. So that's exciting. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.